The moment crept in slowly like the early breath of dawn, just before the sky begins to stretch awake, before the world knows something has changed. I stood at the edge of my garden, my avatar, still, my hands hovering over the controls like I was afraid that moving too quickly might break the spell. Everything was silent, but not empty. There was a tension in the air, not the kind that made you nervous, but the kind that made you aware suddenly and entirely aware of where you were and what was about to happen. It was as if the garden itself was holding its breath, the leaves frozen mid-sway, the fruit heavy with quiet anticipation, the soil pulsing softly beneath it, all like a heartbeat I could not hear but could feel in the stillness. It was the kind of silence that spoke louder than any soundtrack or special effect, a living silence filled with meaning, filled with history, filled with effort and time and quiet devotion, a silence that carried every drop of water I had ever poured, every seed I had placed with unsure hands, every tool I had learned to wield, not for speed, but for purpose. It was as if the land was remembering everything with me, showing me a mirror of my journey, painted not in words or cut scenes, but in roots and trunks and ripened branches. Each plant, each tree, each stubborn vine was a page in a story I had written without realizing, a story told one task at a time, one step at a time, one hesitant choice at a time. And now, in this breathless pause, I could feel the weight of all that story pressing in like a warm, quiet presence behind my shoulder. The garden was waiting, yes, but it was also watching me to see if I would recognize this moment for what it truly was. It was not just harvest day, it was not just coins waiting to be claimed. It was something sacred, something personal, a soft unfolding of the bond between player and place, a celebration of staying the course through droughts of motivation, through weeds of self-doubt, through the many times I had wondered if any of it mattered. And now, standing in that golden hush before the first fruit fell, I knew that it did. The silence deepened, not because the world had gone still, but because it was listening to. The game was not trying to rush me, push me, or reward me too quickly. It was offering me the chance to notice, to feel, to absorb the truth that progress is not only about how much you collect, but how fully you live in the moments between actions, between clicks, between upgrades. I could feel my breath sinking with the soft rhythm of the garden, a quiet, unspoken connection between avatar and earth, between purpose and play. I wasn't just standing in front of a harvest, I was standing in front of proof that consistency adds up, that patience blooms, and that quiet hard work has a way of becoming something more than what it seemed at first. So I stayed still for just a few more seconds, letting that tension stretch and shimmer around me, a gift I had earned without realizing it. And when I finally moved, when I reached forward and began the harvest, it wasn't just about collecting fruit, it was about honoring the journey, about saying yes to all the small choices that had led me here. And the garden responded, not with fireworks or dramatic effects, but with that same steady pulse that had always been there beneath the soil, a quiet assurance that I had done something real, that I had grown something that mattered. I did not rush, because this moment was not made for rushing, it was made for remembering. The garden I saw in front of me was not the same plot I had started with. This space had been shaped by my time, by my patience, by every early morning log and every quiet evening spent watering, replanting, rearranging, learning, sometimes failing, often doubting, but always returning. My fingers hovered, and I felt that familiar spark, the one that happens just before you do something meaningful, not flashy, not loud, but meaningful in a way that only you can understand. I looked at my trees, now grown proud and full, their branches stretched wide, as if inviting me to see them not as code or decoration, but as markers of progress, as echoes of every moment I could have walked away and didn't. The garden glowed in the soft light, a light that seemed to move not from the sun, but from the fruit itself, each piece a lantern of memory, shining with color and promise. I knew then that this was the calm before the harvest, the breath before the leap, the silent truth behind every satisfying moment in the game, that no matter how much you plan or how fast you click or how well you study the mechanics, the soul of the game lives in this quiet magic when everything you have worked for finally blooms, not just on screen, but inside you too. And so I waited just a moment longer, letting it all settle, the soundless song of the garden rising gently around me, letting it remind me of how far I had come before I took that first step forward into the harvest, into the reward, into the moment that would become a memory forever woven into the soil I called my own. Every tree, every bush, every vine stood in quiet readiness, their colors more vivid than I remembered, as if the very soil had decided to speak in shades of green, gold, and deep crimson. Their branches no longer looked still or ordinary. Instead, they seemed alive, almost aware, like they had been watching me from the beginning. And now they too were standing tall in quiet celebration. Their leaves trembled not from wind, but from something deeper, a kind of breath that only gardens know, the kind that rises when growth finally turns to glory. The fruit hung low, heavy and full, and it was not just weight I saw. It was history, it was effort, it was a timeline of every decision I had made since the first time I tilled the earth. The roundness of each fruit was like a reward carved from time and patience and care, as though each one had grown not just from the ground but from my own persistence. They glowed like treasures, and in that moment I realized these were more than just crops. They were silent witnesses of my journey. Every early morning login, every replant, every moment I chose to keep going. When nothing seemed to change, I reached out slowly, not just to harvest, but to honor them, because this was not a race, this was a ritual. Each piece of fruit felt like a story, a memory pressed into skin and juice and color, and as they dropped into my basket, I could feel the weight of more than just produce. I felt the shape of my progress, the arc of my play, the way each layer of effort had ripened into this quiet, magnificent moment of abundance. It was not just satisfying, it was humbling. Because now I understood that gardens do not just grow plants, they grow people too. And this harvest, this epic first harvest, was not just about what I had gained, it was about who I had become in the process. I did not rush, I walked slowly, one step at a time, moving through rows that once had been bare, that once mocked me with their silence, now brimming with life. Each fruit I picked felt like a whisper from the past, reminding me of when the tree was just a seed, when I was just a noob holding a basic tool with no idea what to expect from the world I had stepped into. There was something sacred about the way the fruit fell into my basket, not just an animation, not just a sound cue, but a moment of connection between player and world, between effort and reward. I watched my screen, but I felt something deeper, the kind of satisfaction that comes not from ease but from persistence. I thought of all the times I almost gave up, when my inventory seemed too small, when my tools felt too slow, when the others raced past me with upgraded gear and sprawling farms, and I stood with my modest patch of land wondering if it would ever be enough. But now I knew it was enough. It had always been enough, because the truth is, gardens do not grow from power, they grow from patience, from returning even when you do not feel like it, from watering even when the soil gives nothing back, from planting even when the forecast offers no sun. Gardens grow because you do. And on that day, with my first full harvest glimmering in the golden light of the virtual sun, I knew I had grown too. It was not just the fruit that made it epic, it was the journey, the setbacks, the quiet mornings, the silent nights, the lonely cycles of planting and waiting and watching. All of it had led to this moment. And as I sold my harvest one by one, feeling the weight of the crates, the pull of the market, the rhythm of exchange, I did not feel tired. I felt powerful, because I had earned it, not by buying shortcuts, not by skipping steps, but by embracing every single one. I had watched every branch reach upward, every leaf stretch to the sky. And now it was my time to reach too, to taste the reward of my own effort. And that satisfaction, oh, that deep, wordless joy. It lingered long after the crates were gone, after the stand was empty, after the world returned to its usual buzz of activity. Because I knew what I had done was not just about coins or upgrades, it was about proving to myself that I could start from nothing and turn it into something truly beautiful. This is the magic of the garden, not the harvest itself, but the path that leads you there, the hours, the choices, the care. And now I carry that memory, not in my backpack, but in my playstyle. In the way I tend each plant, in the way I value every seed, because I know what it can become. So when players ask me how to get there, how to feel that rush, that satisfaction, that moment of arrival, I tell them the same thing I told myself at the start: walk slow, watch the trees, listen to your land, and trust that the epic moments are not out there waiting to be found. They are built day by day, fruit by fruit, cycle by cycle by you, and that is what makes it so satisfying.